These enormous tropical flowers belong to a plant called Brugmansia, and over the years I have really struggled to get mine to flower. I've killed my fair share of these enormous plants and lost a lot of money, so I'm going to share with you my journey to truly understanding these plants and getting to a point that I could grow them to this size and get them to flower so reliably every year. Now, the trick to my success growing Brugmansia and getting them to flower every single year was doing my research and understanding their natural origins. Now, in the wild, you'll find these plants growing in tropical regions of South America, from Venezuela all the way through to northern Chile, usually along the Andes. You'll even find them in southeastern Brazil. Now, the first thing that completely changed my understanding of these plants was knowing that in those natural habitats, they'll be experiencing warm, humid days and cooler nighttime temperatures. So if I'm growing them in parts of the world like here in the UK or anywhere that isn't a tropical region, I'm going to expect these plants to flower in spring and autumn. And that's because in spring, the daytime temperatures are warming, but the night times are still cold. And the same goes for autumn. That's when you're going to expect your Brugmansia plants to flower at their best. Now, Brugmansia will survive temperatures down to those in USDA gardening zone 9 and above, because don't forget, they are from tropical origin. So that means anything below about 10 to 7 degrees Celsius, they're going to need protection. They're not going to tolerate that. That's the coldest they're going to go. Now, if you can give your Brugmansia plants these conditions and some care that I'll get to in a minute, they have the potential to grow as perennials that will get to the size of small trees. Now, perennial just means that they're going to survive year after year and they're going to keep getting bigger and better. So having killed my first few Brugmansia plants, just from not having enough knowledge, I now knew that they needed tropical temperatures to survive. They could get bigger and better every year, and I can get them through winter. Now was my time to have another go at growing these plants and to feed and fertilise them along the way to get nice big leaves and big bold tropical flowers. But I want to stick to a budget, so here's how I did it. So then I came to my greenhouse, where you can grow Brugmansias in the cheapest way possible. Brugmansia plants are really easy to grow from seed, and if you just look into this propagator here, I have some young seedlings growing. Now, they grow very, very quickly, and the tip with Brugmansia seeds is just to soak the seeds in warm water for 24 hours before sowing. That's going to soften that hard outer seed coat, and it will speed up the germination rate. That's the time it takes for that seed to put out its first leaves and shoots. After that, sow them into some good quality seed compost or a sieved multi-purpose compost. Put them on heat. I use a minimum of 18 degrees Celsius up to about 24 degrees Celsius, and the seedlings popped up in less than 2 weeks. And at this point, they grow quickly. You can pot them on and you'll soon have young plants. After about 4 or 5 weeks, roughly a month, this is the size those young plants will get to. Now, this is a 1 litre pot and they are ready for potting on again. Remember, Brugmansia are very hungry plants, and you can see they grow an enormous root system very, very quickly. And the more you can pot them on, the bigger they're going to get, the bigger the leaves and the healthier the plant. At this stage, your young Brugmansia plants are ready to be potted into the biggest pot that you have space for, because that's going to be where they're going to spend their summertime putting on their summer display. So just down here is a Brugmansia about 2 months after potting on, and it's inside of a 10 litre pot. Now, this is perfect. It's a good size. It holds a lot of water and a lot of soil, and you can see the Brugmansia has grown on into quite a healthy young plant. But let's have a closer look. Now, Brugmansia plants are some of the hungriest plants that I have ever grown. So although you've given it plenty of compost and a nice big pot, you are going to need to fertilise it. Now, early in the year, we want to encourage nice big green leaves and healthy stem growth. I'd recommend feeding with something like liquid seaweed. It's high in nitrogen. Nitrogen is what plants use to put out big, healthy green leaves, and that's going to help this plant photosynthesize and grow into a big, healthy shrub or even tree-sized plant. Then, as this Y formation forms on the stem, it's a sign that your plant is approaching the time that it's going to finally flower. After you get the Y formation, you get these enormous flower buds emerging, out of which your beautiful angel trumpet flowers will emerge. Now, to encourage flowering, I'd recommend you switch your fertiliser to something like liquid tomato feed. Now, liquid tomato feed is high in phosphorus, and it encourages blooms on tomato plants, which when pollinated will turn into fruits, and it has exactly the same effect on any flowering plant. And Brugmansia are actually related to tomatoes, so they will thrive with this feed. As I say, these are some of the hungriest plants I've ever grown, so I fertilise mine at least twice a week in spring, summer and autumn with liquid tomato food to encourage all of these beautiful tropical flowers to emerge. Now is the perfect time to mention that as well as being hungry, Brugmansia plants are very, very thirsty because they have these huge leaves that lose a lot of water through transpiration throughout the day. That's why they thrive in humid conditions in the wild. So if you're growing it in a pot, which I recommend, you should sit that pot inside of a water tray and it's going to keep that plant hydrated throughout the day. Without water, there is nothing to carry all of that fertiliser up into the plant to help it grow big healthy leaves and some of these stunning Angel Trumpet flowers. Now, I reliably get my Brugmansia plants to flower every spring and every autumn because remember, they like it when the daytime temperatures are warming up, but the nighttime temperatures are still cold. So in spring and autumn here in the UK and in many parts of the world, that is the ideal time to get your Brugmansia plants to flower. But once they've got to this size and winter is approaching, you've enjoyed all of these tropical flowers. How do you get your plants through winter? How do you get them to survive, be a perennial plant that can get bigger and better each year? So in autumn, late autumn, before any frost is forecast, it's time to protect your Brugmansia plants. And this is one of the reasons if you're growing them in a part of the world that has cold winters, it's ideal to grow them in a container like this. If you can keep it to a size that you can move easily, you can pick them up and move them somewhere frost-free like the greenhouse. The thing is, Brugmansias can grow to enormous proportions, so we're going to need to take some action to make them appropriate sized for our greenhouse or conservatory or shed or even porch, anywhere that remains above 7 degrees Celsius through winter. Right, I'm tight on space. My greenhouse is 6 foot by 8 foot in size and I need to overwinter all of my tender plants in here and keep propagating plants just to fulfill my passion. So this is where, and it can seem harsh, I'm going to start chopping stems off. Now, Brugmansia, you can cut back really hard. In fact, you can see that I've cut back these plants to within kind of a foot above soil level sometimes, just so that I can slide them under the benches in winter, keep them out of the way, above 7 degrees Celsius, but I'll keep them on the drier side, where they'll go into a semi-dormant state, they'll survive winter, and then in spring I'll bring them out once the temperatures are reliably above 7 to 10 degrees Celsius, and I'll start fertilising as we said, and they'll grow away healthily and happily for another seasonal display. But when you chop your Brugmansia stems off, they actually root from cuttings really easily, which is another fantastic affordable way to grow your own Brugmansia plants at home. If you can get a cutting off a friend's plant, stick it in a jar of water, somewhere warm, strip off all but 1 or 2 leaves, you will see roots emerging in a couple of weeks' time. And once it has produced a healthy amount of roots, pot it on and fertilise it and start the cycle that we've been talking about, and you will have another healthy Brugmansia plant for your garden. So that's it. You now know how to grow your own Brugmansia plants from seed so that you can start on a budget. If you have a friend that has a plant that you love, if you take a cutting, it will be an exact clone of theirs. So there's 2 ways to get Brugmansia plants on a budget. You know how to pot them on, feed them for foliage, feed them for flowers, and you know how to give them the perfect conditions to get them to flower in spring and autumn. These plants are fantastic and I highly recommend you have a go at growing them, even if you're not in a warm tropical part of the world. These can be enjoyed outside in the warmer months wherever you are. Thank you so much for watching, and if you enjoyed this video, hit subscribe. It's the easiest way to support the channel. And we have a growers forum at growparadise.social where people who love growing this style of plants are helping each other out, sharing pictures and just sharing our passion. If you're in the UK, feel free to check out our plant and seed shop. I appreciate your support. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you all in the next one.